Hello everybody, welcome back to the Magical Jill channel. This is Jay. I am one of the two hosts here. I'm Jill's husband. And I wanted to make a very brief video today on something that I didn't even know happened years ago, but it is regarding the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is obviously a very popular anime, and it is also a very popular card game that is pushed by Konami quite a bit. That's how I found Yu-Gi-Oh! Was through the anime and the card game, but originally it was also a manga created by a visionary manga writer named Kazuki Takahashi. Now, this man had a very brilliant imagination, and he came up with all of these different stories and things, basically about duel monsters, and even before that, about Yugimoto and the characters in the manga series, going through trials, tribulations, stories. It's very interesting. You know, I grew up mainly on the anime and the card game, but I began to read the manga after getting into those, and it's very dark. It's a fascinating story, and I think it is one of the more creative manga that's been written, at least with fantasy, that I know of. Now, I know a lot of people know Yu-Gi-Oh! From the other things, especially from the card game, and Konami, I would argue, kind of pushes it a lot like a gambling type thing, just like trading card games are. But Kazuki Takahashi deserves a lot of credit, and he doesn't just deserve credit for his creation, he also deserves credit for how he lived his life. This is a man who laid down his life trying to help other people. And that's the story I wanted to talk about briefly today, as in 2022, Kazuki Takahashi died trying to save people from violent current. In many ways, Mr. Takahashi reminds me of other legendary creators like Akira Toriyama, who cared not only about the story that they were making, but also about how their stories and how their lives affected the lives of other people who they might not even meet. And so I did have a brief question of the day for you, which is there a figure in manga work, anime work, any of this stuff that we cover on this channel that you think deserves recognition for how they lived their life, and why? Because I'd love to hear that story. Now, there are multiple accounts of what happened, and they are on the internet. I'd recommend you read them. One of the primary ones I was reading was from stripes.com that essentially details about how an army officer helped save 3 different people during a riptide that was going to kill them. But another hero unfortunately died that same day, being pulled under with the riptide, and that was Kazuki Takahashi. Now, some people might say, well, what makes him a hero? He was in the water, you know, he was there, he died. I mean, you can die and be a victim of something, but what made him a hero? Well, his body was recovered a couple days later, but on July 4th, it was actually reported by multiple witnesses that Takahashi, who did not need to do this, had jumped into the water, essentially into the riptide, attempting to save 2 to 3 people who were also stuck in it. And so he went into the water trying to save these people's lives and trying to get to them to protect them. The sad and terrible tragedy is he never reached them. He tried his best, but he wasn't able to. And it actually took a military officer who was from the US, who had experience being in the water, to be able to pull out just a couple of people, and even then he almost died. And that was Major Robert Bourgeot, who I hope I'm saying the name right, but if I'm not, I apologize, who had talked about Takahashi trying to help, and the fact that he was able to get a couple people out, and he almost drowned as well. Mr. Bourgeot said that you play the what-if game a lot. This guy had a huge impact on the world. The conditions were really, really rough, and he had seen a woman screaming and calling for help as her daughter and a 39-year-old soldier as well were being swallowed by heavy current. So not only had he rushed to help, but also Mr. Takahashi had as well. And even though he wasn't able to pull anyone out, I do think it deserves commendation and deserves recognition that he died trying to save people's lives. This was someone who did not need to participate, did not need to get involved, and ended up laying down his life because he wanted to help people. And what's interesting about that is he also personified many of the messages of the stories that he created. Characters like Yugi, they get involved in situations that they don't need to be involved in because it's the right thing to do. I think a lot of people look at the stories of Yu-Gi-Oh! And they see, oh, you know, it's just people playing silly card games, it's fantasy, or they'll look at the more almost gambling-driven trading card game atmospheres of the modern world in real life, and they won't understand the impact that these things and these characters had on people. And it's worth noting that Mr. Takahashi, he had been very profitable for companies like Konami. To my knowledge, he was not at all struggling financially. He had things to live for. He had money. He was doing fine. But like the characters that he wrote, he got involved with a situation that was horrible because it was the right thing to do, was to try to help these people. And that's a lesson I learned, you know, from Yu-Gi-Oh! And from anime and manga like it, where there are so many characters who have a profound impact on our lives because of this, because they're willing to step in situations that they didn't need to. They're willing to do the right thing even when it's unpopular or hard, or it doesn't actually get them anything. You know, there was a storyline in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where essentially, and I'm gonna butcher some names, I apologize, because I'm most familiar with the censored English dub of the anime, so I'm gonna use those names because that's what was the English localization. But essentially, Yugi and Joey were trying to earn this prize money. They were at Duelist Kingdom and all of that, and Joey's sister needed help because her eyesight was going and she needed medical help, and they couldn't afford it, really, his family. But what's interesting about this is, even though these characters went through all of this tribulation, right, through the Duelist Kingdom arc, in the end, Yugi wins the money, and he doesn't need to do anything with it. Like, he wins this fair and square, he wins the game. You know what he does with that? He gives it to his friend Joey, who, by the way, was a bully. His friend bullied him growing up. This was someone who hadn't been his friend, and if you read the original manga or you watch what is now known as Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, you see that how this develops. It's almost a situation similar to Piccolo Jr. and Goku in Dragon Ball, where they become friends even though they were enemies at first. And it's a similar situation to that, where Yugi shows mercy on these bullies that were terrorizing him, and they slowly become his friends, and then later on he's the one to step in and help save his friend's sister. And it reminds me a little bit of Mr. Takahashi, who had that spirit of heroism in him, who didn't need to get involved but still did. It's something that the world needs more of, and even if sometimes it ends in what might look like futility, people are going to look at him and his story, and they're going to see a blueprint of how to live a life, how to sacrifice for others, even when you don't gain anything out of it. You know, growing up, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had such a profound impact on me, especially getting into college, and I made so many friends from playing the game. I collected cards. I loved it. I loved the stories. I loved the imagination. To this day, I still play the video games, which is probably the primary footage being shown in this video, just because of, you know, we don't have footage of people diving into riptides, and also as well, Konami is a little stingy with the rights around Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if you're making transformative videos with the anime, they're still a little picky about copyright. So, you know, even these games that you've probably seen on screen, they still have a profound impact on me. I still go on trading card sites like once or twice a year, and I'll pick up a few cheap singles to add to my book just to have fun. My wife Jill and I, we've played the game digitally together. Mr. Takahashi, his creations did so much to bring people together and to stoke the imagination, and then his life ended with him living out the heroic principles that characters like Yugi, Jaden, you know, Yusei, these characters that he created, or at least stoked the fires to create, I should say, because he didn't write all of the mangas and things like that, but he did create that world and sort of create the jumping on point for others to come in, step in, and make new stories, right? His imagination and his worlds of heroism, he lived out that message in the end in his final moments, and I think it's something that deserves recognition. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Let us know if you enjoyed the video. I don't want to push selling you anything here because it's a very serious video, but all the ways to support the channel like normal are going to be in the description. And Mr. Takahashi deserves his flowers for what he did for these people. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.